Good to be back with you. It's been about 3 months. I see a few new faces here. The Paces, did not know them. Here, y'all been here longer than I've known about this place, but that's great. Have y'all here today. Hope you'll choose to make this permanent place. Anybody want to guess what the title of the lesson is today? It's up there. This sermon started with, first of all, made a call at the line and said, no, we're not going that way. I wanted to do a lesson on forgiveness. One of my habits is I'm walking around at work, I doodle on a notepad all the time, and I had some notes on forgiveness. But I'm like, I think we've already done that. That's another story, but I walked into the control room on Monday, and Joe Capps was there, and we're recording this, so maybe, Joe, you'll never hear this. But I love Joe to death, but I asked him, trying to steer the conversation to good direction, said, tell me something good. And he looked me in the eye and he said, be the light. And it kind of surprised me because that's really not what I was expecting. But then that started ricocheting around inside my head, and that's what we ended up with here. To be the light. And I really believe there's a storm that's coming that I would call the darkness, and it needs to be pushed back. I believe there's a warfare that's going on between the forces of light and the forces of darkness, and it's a little intimidating sometimes to think about how far the darkness has spread, and what's really even scary is when I look down in my own heart, and there are dark crevices in there. And it's personal at that point. And that's what I want to talk to you about this morning. It's about that warfare that's going on. And Jesus calls upon us to be the light. We're going to go in several different directions. I can tell you right now, we're going to get a little bit technical. And we're going to get a little bit scriptural. And we're going to get a little bit free association, just thinking about, well, what does that mean? So just kind of hang on. We're going to look at some songs. And that's what we're going to end at. But the theme is basically this, to be children of light. And as I thought about what Joe said, and again it started with him, be the light, brother. He'd been to a cowboy church where he was calf roping that day for a rodeo, and somebody got up and said, be the light. And then he gave that to me, and then I want to give it to you. And that's really kind of illustration of what we're talking about spreading the light. Be the light. You got to be careful where, you put a match because it might spread. But that's what we want it to do. I went from there to the idea of children of light. And I knew I'd read that somewhere, and I said, I think that's got something to do with what we call the Dead Sea Scrolls. 1956, I think it was. Some little shepherd boy was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing probably. Instead of watching the sheep, he was up there throwing rocks, and he threw a rock in a cave, and it hit something, and he's like, whoa, what was that? So he went in there, and he found a jar. Now, this is a true story. He went in there, and he pulled this jar out, and he's like, whoa, I don't know what I've got here, but I better go get some adults. And what we have dug out of those caves we know as the Qumran material, because that's the name of that area, or the Dead Sea Scrolls, because that's the area that it's in there. But in the community that lived there were a group of people known as the Essenes. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. That word's not in the Bible. There are some groups that existed within Judaism in the time of Jesus, some of which we're familiar with. One of the most familiar ones is one Jesus has some pretty harsh words for, and we know them as what? The Pharisees. We know them well. And another group that we know pretty well, not quite as large a group, but really more powerful group in some ways, was the Sadducees. And they were the ones that were in control. And there was another group, and there's one or two references in Scripture about them. One of the 12 is known as Simon Zelotes. You remember that translation? Simon the Zealot would be another translation. There were a group in the Jewish community known as the Zealots, and they hated the Romans. Of course, they all didn't like them, but they hated them. And they would walk around with little daggers known as Sakari. And when they got an opportunity, they would run one up inside the rib of a Roman soldier. I mean, these guys took that fight pretty seriously, caused a lot of trouble. Few of them didn't go out very well, but they were zealots, and maybe we get the word to be zealous from that. But there's another group known as the Essenes, and this is back 2nd century BC, and out of them might have grown what became the Pharisees. But these people looked at what was going on, and they said, no, this is going the wrong direction. We don't want to be that. And we're going to talk about them some more. And what they went through is they tried to make sense out of life and tried to be faithful. But they were known as the B'nai Or. That's the Hebrew. That was used in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the children of light or the sons of light. And one of the scrolls that they dug up in the cave 1 actually is one of the first ones they found, what is known as the War Scroll. It's also been called the Scroll of the War between the sons of light, that's what we're talking about, and the sons of darkness. And somewhat like the book of Revelation, not so much, but somewhat like that, somewhat like a war manual. They expected a war, and God is going to come down, and the angels of light are going to come down, and the sons of light are going to stand up, and we're going to win this. What I'm suggesting to you is we need some of that in us. I need that in me to know who I am. I am a son of light. You are a child of light. Let's go, unisex with that, if you would. They lived in somewhat of a paternalistic society, but daughters of light, if you would. Sons of light, not sons of darkness. Let's look at some scriptures. Genesis chapter 1, you're familiar with this, talking about the creation. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. Now, I honestly believe that this is a literal record of what was going on in the creation, but I also believe there's something deeper going on there. There was darkness. There was darkness everywhere, and notice the Spirit of God was moving over the face of the waters, and God said, let there be light. Now, in a literal sense, He created light. He doesn't create sun, moon, and stars for a little bit longer, but the very concept of light. And there's something else going on here. I think metaphorically He's saying, let there be light. In His mind, even though creation is just beginning, it's just starting to shape up, He knows that in the history of man there will be darkness in our hearts. There will be darkness in our land. There will be darkness in this world that we live in. He says, let there be light. And that the light was good, and it should be separated from the darkness. Another text, Isaiah Chapter 10, the light of Israel. Who's it talking about? It's talking about God. God is the light of Israel. Now get that in your head, because we're going to get over here to Jesus in just a minute. But I am the light of the Israel, and I will become a fire. Now when we think of light, we think about these things, electrical lights. How long have they been around? 2 generations, 3 generations? I mean, electric lights haven't been around that long. Prior to that, what did we have? Candles. Lamps, fire, a burning bush. I mean, there's the light that we have, the sun, which is a burning ball of fire. And He says, I will become a fire. And there's a cleansing that's going on here. Their Holy One, a flame, and in a single day it will burn and consume His thorns and His briars. And we see something about light there, about light being a purifying agent. We've got an infestation of ticks in our yard, and I'm thinking about just spraying the whole yard with diesel fuel and lighting it up. That'll take care of it. Might burn the house down too, but I'm going to get rid of them. Fire can cleanse some things, and God is that kind of fire. John chapter 8, I am the light of the world. Who's talking there? Hey, buddy. Jesus Christ is talking there. He says, I'm the light of the world, and if you walk with me, you're not going to walk in darkness, but you will have the light of life. And that's one of the things about life. You won't be walking in the darkness. We're going to talk about that some more in a minute. Let's keep going here. John chapter 12. Believe in the light. Who is that? That's Jesus. While you have the light, so that you may come, and here's our phrase here, children of light. Now stop right there for just a minute. Sons of light, sons of darkness. Try to take yourself mentally back to the time of Jesus. And we live in the 21st century in North America in a culture that is about as ungodly as it can get. But take yourself all the way back to that time, and the Essenes have left Jerusalem. This place is ungodly. It's Hellenized. All they want to do is go down to the gymnasium, and they run around with no clothes on down there, and they're all drunk and carrying on. We are leaving. We're going out to the desert like the prophet said, and we are going to be pure. We will be the sons of light. And Jesus picks up on that phrase, and he says, you are the sons of light. I think there's something going on there that we miss because we're 21 centuries removed. But Jesus is looking at his followers then, and he's talking to us too, and he's saying, you are the sons of light. This cosmic conflict that the Essenes have written a scroll about 200 years before the time of Jesus, and the people are walking around talking about the sons of light and about Israel being a light to the world. He said, you are the sons of light. And he wants us to take that seriously. Philippians, Paul picks up on it. You shine as lights in the world. 1 Thessalonians, you are all children of light, children of the day. We are not of the night or of darkness. So it's not just Jesus. Paul picks up on it and he says, you are children of the light. You're not in the darkness. So what's he trying to tell us? 1 John, another one, if we walk in the light, as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus, his Son, purifies us from all sin. I want to mentally take you back to an event in the life of Jesus. Matthew chapter 17, Jesus went up on a mountain. He took 3 with him. I think it was Peter, James, and John. And in verse 2, it says that he was transfigured before them. You remember what happened when he was transfigured? It said his face glowed like the sun, and his garments were as white as light. Now just get your head around that for a minute. He says, I'm the light. He said, you are children of the light. And I mean, he's glowing, not in the dark. He's glowing in the daylight. And we are children of light. We are called out to be different, to not be of the darkness. See how many more we have here. 2 Corinthians 4. Let light shine out of darkness. He who said that made his light shine in our hearts. And he's given us the light of the knowledge of God's glory that's being displayed in Ephesians 5. You are light in the Lord. Proverbs 13, one more here. The light of the righteous shines brightly, but the lamp of the wicked is snuffed out. Now, why did I put that in there? You'll see it in the conclusion. You got 2 choices. There's eternal light and there's eternal darkness. There's outer darkness, and there's a choice to be made. There's one of the scrolls I was talking about, and I've got some text here that explains all about the Essenes, and it's well worth reading. I'm just going to tell you where the link is. Just type in Lights of Sun in Google and go to the link that has to do with Ray Vander Laan, that the world may know, and read all of this. We're not going to take time now because I've got to keep moving here. But it's explaining how they went out in the desert, and they were going to be different out there, and they came to an end. Probably when the Romans came in AD 68, they cleaned them out. But Sons of Thunder, who were those guys? No, they weren't angels. They were 2 of the disciples, James and John. We use this expression, Sons of Anarchy. That's a show that's going on. I'm a son of the South. That one there, we use it at work quite a bit. But Sons of Light. How do we see ourselves? I mean, in our culture right now, why is that show Sons of Anarchy popular? Because it is calling something within the heart. The guys I work with, they glory in that 4th one. It's like some perverse, lewd, crude, rude attitude. And that's who they are. I don't want to be that way. I want to be a son of the light. And we're going to talk about that and what that means, and it means different things at different times. But I walk with him. I want to glow in the dark and represent Jesus Christ, and people see something different for my good, for their good. That's what I want to be, because we are in a death grip of a conflict of the ages. And it's going on all around us and we don't even see it. But it's happening. Hell is doing its best to drag every last one of us down there. And heaven is doing everything it can to keep us away from it. And we're caught in the middle of it. Jesus says, I am the light, and he says, you are the light. And we have a responsibility to be involved in this and let our light shine, he says, so that others might see our good works and they might glorify your Father who is in heaven. That's a picture. But I think it captures something that's going on, that's how it's going to end. I mean, when the sun comes, it will all be shut down. And it will be one of two destinies at that point. What is the purpose of light? This is where we're just going to kind of brainstorm here. As he talks about you being the light, what is he saying? This is not technical what we're fixing to do, and you might add to the list or disagree with it or agree with it, but one thing that light does, it helps us find things. I mean, when it's dark, you can't see. You need a flashlight. Pull a flashlight and go around looking under there and you find it. That's one of the purposes of light, is we're lost in this life and we can't seem to find our way. Light helps us find the things. Light is for study. Flip on the light. Read the book. Get in the book. We need that light. We need others. It's like the man said, how can I know unless somebody shows me? I'm thinking about the Ethiopian eunuch. He's going on, I need somebody to show me. Shine some light on this. To be light. Why is that thing not working? Ding, ding, ding. If there's no green light, that means the battery's out. Turn it off. Turn it on. Okay, guys, we have technical difficulties here. Y'all going to have to advance the slides for me. Number 3, you got a button back there? There we go. I don't know what you did, but you get a star. Light keeps me from tripping. There's nothing worse than to get up in the night trying to go to the bathroom, and as you go around the end of the bed because the light's off and you catch your little toe on the leg of the bed. Has anybody else ever done that? It is a killer. Light keeps us from tripping, and as we think about walking in the light and being the light, we can keep each other from tripping up. We're just talking about light. What does it mean to be a light? Let's help each other. Photosynthesis. I wrote that down. Wow, that's a big word. What does photosynthesis mean? Some of you brains out there. I know you know, little man. Don't let me down. Come on, you science whizzes. That goes on with green. Jonathan knows, he's just too embarrassed to say. The light of the sun has shined. Christian, go ahead, buddy. Conversion of light into what? What's it doing in the plant? The chlorophyll is going on in there, and we're taking energy, light energy, and turning it into something else here, and we eat these plants, and what does it give us? It gives us energy. Light is creating energy and creating food. And think about that spiritually for a minute. As we're walking in the light, we're being nourished. We're being energized. That's what I'm suggesting. There are purposes of light to be that. Cures jaundice. What do they do with a little baby when they're yellow? Whoop, they put him on the light table. I don't know how that works, but it works. Sarah, you're a nurse. How does that work? We don't need to go into a long discussion about that, but it does. I hope I'm right on this one. What vitamin is produced in our body by being exposed to sunlight? Is that vitamin D? Thank you. I mean, just walking in the light is helping me be healthy. Think about that spiritually. If you're in the darkness all the time, you have a vitamin D deficiency, you have to take a little pill. And that is a problem with people that live in northern latitudes, but being out there in the light, and I'm talking about this spiritually, it shows me the way. It is much easier to drive around in the daytime than it is at nighttime. You have landmarks, and you can get there. Shows me how to get there. It keeps me from getting lost. Again, I'm talking about this metaphorically, to walk in the light. I don't want to be lost. I want to get where I'm trying to get to. Different kinds of light. There's security lights. And when we put lights up out around our house so we can see what's going on out there, is there some application there as we think about being the light, be a security light? I think there is. There's also a warning light, beep, 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 beep. I mean, where I work, if there's a blue light flashing, don't go in there because there's H2S gas over there and you're going to die if it's bad enough, and you don't want to do that. There are warning lights. Sometimes being the light is being a warning. Don't go there. That's a bad place. You're going to die. Brings back a good story about don't go in there, you're going to die, but won't go there. Navigational lights. There's an old hymn, let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam. Anybody else know that one? So many hymns about light, and we're going to look at that in a minute. But navigational lights, to be a light, sit up on a hill, Jesus says, a light that's lit and put in a room. It's a navigational light. You know where to go. You can look over there and say, that's where I need to be going. Some people need to see that. Sometimes I need to see that. I need to look at somebody and say, you know, his life's going the right way. I want to go that way. To be the light. You be sons of light. Just trying to make it practical. This one is probably crazier than the last list. Thoughts about light. One is, candle has no shadow. That's where Joe, that was his first comment. He talked about being light. Candle has no shadow. I'm like, So he got his flashlight out and held it up, and you could see the shadow of the flashlight on the refrigerator there in the break room, and he turned the beam on. You could see the beam, but there was no beam shadow. I'm like, got me. There's no shadow in God. James says there's no change, there's no shadow of turning. He's stable. You can count on him. He's dependable. Maybe that's part of what being the light is, to be dependable, to not cast a shadow because you're moving around. That's a comment Jesus made. I mean, it's just common sense. You don't light a light and then cover it up. It's stupid. You might put a shade on it so it, will blind you, but the light is diffused into all the room. I wanted to do this morning, and I really didn't take the time to do it, and I did it one time in a sermon years ago, and if I tell it, it's not the same thing as doing it, but I'm going to tell it. If I had a kerosene lamp right here, first thing I would do is light it, and then I would have to adjust it. And if you've ever used a kerosene lamp, what do you have to do every once in a while to the wick? You have to trim it. Jesus talks about trimming the wick. If you don't do it, it won't burn as brightly. You have to adjust it up and down. And once you light it, what do you do then? Put the globe on it. It just seems to brighten up when you do that. But, now this is what I did in this sermon. I wanted to do it today, but didn't. I lit a candle, put it right here. So use your imagination. Turn all the lights off, imagination-wise. It's dark in here. There's no source of light except this one candle beam right here. How many of you can see that candle beam? Every last one of us can see that candle beam. Can we see the room? If you sit here long enough, even one candle as your eyes adjust will allow you to see a lot of stuff that's going on in here. The older you get, the less you can do that, but you can see. But then Jesus talks about putting a bushel over it. I took a clear jar and put over the top of it to be the bushel. And you know what happened to the candle? What happened to the candle, Daniel? What happened to the candle, Samuel? Jonathan, tell me. Bella, what happened to that candle after I put that jar over the top of it? Hannah, it's your turn. It what? It goes out. Now, I wish I had taken the trouble to bring a candle and do that today, because you'd never forget that. You're going to forget that I told you this. But it's the truth. You put that over it and you know it's true. The oxygen is used up and the candle will die. And as we put a bushel over our light, nobody else gets the light and it goes out within us. Don't put it under a bushel. Candle can start a forest fire. You got to be careful. I mean, there's a place out there in California that's not there anymore because somebody wasn't careful with their campfire. Candle can feed solar energy. David and I were talking about this yesterday. The idea of harnessing that energy from the sun through solar cells is fascinating. And as we walk in the light, it's feeding us. These are just random thoughts. Candle lights the way for everybody around it. Jar, we just talked about that. Now here's a scary one. Where I work, whenever we have a grinder and it's throwing sparks, whenever we have a torch, cutting something, we had to have a fire watch. We had to have a fire watch permit, and the fire watch has to watch it for 30 minutes after we get through. And then he has to sign off on it every hour after that. You know why we do that? Because sparks are flying, and we don't want to burn the mill down. Because we burn the mill down, we don't get a paycheck. We don't get a paycheck, we can't pay our bills. It gets kind of ugly real fast. Sparks are flying, so watch what you're doing. What's my point there as we think about our being the light? There are little people, there are other people that are watching everything that we do. I walked into the break room Friday after working on this sermon all week, and I walk around the mill. Two purposes, really. One, just trying to get people to think about God, and the other thinking, I might hear something I need to hear. And I'll ask them, hey, I'm doing a sermon on light. What do you think when you hear about you are the light? Well, I walked into the break room on Friday. Am I over time? Yes, I am, so I got to speed it up here. We're not going to finish this thing. And I said, what do you think about when you hear you are the light? And he said, no, I done heard about you. You're trying to write a sermon. Well, that was on Friday, and shift changes on Thursday, and a whole new crew had come in, and I'm thinking, how in the world did he know that? How did he know that? Sparks have been flying. Somebody had been talking about me behind my back. And you know what? I really rejoiced that they were, that he would know that. And he began to argue with me, and I began to shut him up. We're going to have to quit here because it is time. I'm going to go very quickly through the rest of these slides, but I want you to think about what it means to be the light. Think about different songs that we have. Here's a little one here. How many know this song? This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. That's a good children's song, but there's so much truth there. Christ be our light. Google Christian hymns with light as a theme. Shrink it down a little bit. You'll come up with this one. I'd never heard of it before. It is a beautiful, beautiful hymn. Best I can tell, it's associated with Roman Catholic circles. I wish we had time to learn this one. Let's keep going here. Shine on me, Lord, the light of your love is shining. Shine, you know that one, don't you? Go light your world. This is an old Chris Rice. He's one of your favorites, Jeremiah. Ran into that, and it's like there's a candle in every soul, some brightly burning, some dark and cold. There's a spirit who brings a fire, ignites a candle, and makes his home. Carry your candle, run to the darkness. Seek out the helpless, confused and torn. Hold out your candle for all to see. Take your candle and go light your world. That summarizes the sermon pretty well. You put your light in me, Brandon Heath. We are the light of the world. I could go on and on and on. They're out there. Google it. You're going to find all kinds of stuff. If you type in Greek Orthodox songs about light, you're going to find some really weird stuff. Here's the conclusion. I haven't lost you. To be sons of light. Let me go unisex. Be children of light. Every one of us that are following Jesus, Jesus has promised, He has challenged, He has said, you are a child of light. What does that mean? I think it has something to do with purity, to not let the darkness reign in our hearts, to go to God and say, purify me, cleanse me, burn it out. Some of it has to do with purity. Some of it has to do with purpose. I have a purpose. I am a light. Sarah asked me one time, what do you want your legacy to your grandchildren to be? And that's a challenging thought. I want to be a light. I like to aggravate them, but to be a light. Think about Jesus. Another thing is we think about light, and I think this is a big part of it, is passing it on. It's like those sparks, trying to get other people lit up. And it's not my responsibility to light you up. That's the work of the Spirit of God in your own heart. But as those sparks get there, the wind can come in and whip them up into a flame. If you think about it, perspective. What am I? Am I a son of anarchy? Am I a son of the South? Or am I a son of the light? I'm one of the light of Israel. Power. So we think about light, the power that's available to us. If we will go to God and ask Him, help me to be that light. There's my last point there, eternal light or outer darkness. As I was studying for this lesson, I looked up light, lamp, candle, darkness, and I said, let's do outer darkness. In the search engine I was using, it didn't pull up an exhaustive list, but it pulled up enough. Jesus talks about being cast into outer darkness, where there's weeping, there's gnashing of teeth. Man, I messed up. I know which one I want, and I know which one you need to want, and I think I do, but there's a warfare that's going on. There's a warfare that's going on between the light and the darkness, the light of God and Lucifer himself, between the sons of light in heaven and on earth and the sons of darkness. So we try to rescue our fallen brothers. Be the light, sons of light. We're going to stand and we're going to sing this hymn. What number are we on? One. I marked it, 210. Jesus paid it all, and he did pay it all. And he's calling us to follow him. If you need to respond, we're going to invite you to come while we stand and while we sing.